This is ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage. Connect with us at accnation.net. Listen to our podcast and streaming radio. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on your favorite social media outlet. Now, here's Will and Jim.
Kevin of Red and White Podcast is here as our guest, and one simple guess on your part as to what we're going to be talking about in this episode of ACC Nation. Evan, thanks for joining us. Let's get right into the nitty-gritty. We're looking for a new coach. So
I thought we were going to talk spring football. What are we doing? Basketball?
Whoa. Spring football. What? Hey, we can get into that too. Why not? Anything and everything. It's about NC State. We're good to talk about. Let's back up a little bit here. Was this a surprise in any way? I mean, I've been reading opinions from people on both sides of this fence, and it just strikes me as being, well, we kind of expected it back before this, and then, maybe they gave him another chance, and, what did it take for Corrigan to pull the trigger, on and on and on and on. And we're here for conjecture, man. Whatever conjecture you can throw, and let's see what sticks against the side of the barn.
Yeah, it was kind of a surprise, right? I mean, the general philosophy for most people was like, well, he earned a pass after last year's run.
Yeah.
But you couldn't see the state of the program and think that everything was okay, or that if they would have carried on another year with, at the end of the year, there was nobody in the stands, nobody cared, nobody likes the guy, and they just never got any better, right? And the state of the program couldn't have sustained another year, a whole year like that, right? If there would have been no excitement, there would have been not that they care about ticket sales, but there would have been no people there. There would have just been nothing, right? So from that standpoint, I'm not surprised, but I think it was funny. Like it's been a long time since I've been on the Keatts bandwagon, right? I didn't think that it was going to work out, right? And I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this. He never won me over, right? I thought he was not good enough, and I don't know. It was surprising to me how many people were like, yeah, he's okay. He's doing, he always had an excuse, and I don't know. I just didn't think it was going to last. I didn't think it was sustainable. Even after the run, last year, it was just a fluke, right? And I'm listening to the CBS Eye on College Basketball podcast today, and one of the hosts was like, they could have fired him after last year. Like, hey, this was a great random thing that happened, but your whole body of work is not good enough. It's not, it stinks. So from that standpoint, I think some people who are thinking about it that way are not surprised. Yeah. And then you just watch the product on the floor and like, this is awful. And I think Boo Corrigan had no choice but to make that move. Otherwise, the program would have been left for dead, essentially. Like, it's just unacceptable for a founding member of the ACC, in my opinion, to not make the ACC tournament. Like, you should not be in that. That should be at the very least your bar. Like, don't do this. Don't miss this tournament.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a hard bar to get over, but he did. And all he had to do this year was be like bubble-ish, middle of the pack, and be like, oh, okay, there's some progress there, got some pieces, whatever. But they stunk. They were bad, and it was not sustainable. Like, it was long overdue.
Yeah, this is the thing that you bring to light, and certainly as an observer of the ACC for eons now, it seems, being that one of those founding members and part of Tobacco Road and the storied history, Valvano, the whole 9 yards. I mean, I could just go back through players. I've got a good friend, same age, well, I think he's a year older than me, but he is just a diehard NC State fan, loves that team, and it kills him every time I I bring this up. And it's just, you know, to see the program get to this point, uh,
It
confused, I
sucks.
think everybody. Yeah, well, yeah, it does suck, and it confuses people. I mean, it's it's not fun. It's not fun to watch, unless you hate NC State. But it's not fun to watch any team, any program that has that history.
Right.
Go through this, and I wonder if the amount of time that it's taken to really go in the right direction may be a reflection of the people who are making decisions or who have made decisions in the past, of sort of that old school way of thinking, rather than the reality of where we are today in college sports.
It makes me, I get frustrated when I think about how our athletic department has handled our major revenue sports over the years, and this is the perfect example of them. Like I think Keats should have been let go after 2021 season. I mean, and they just kept him on. There's always some excuse. It was the cloud. It was injuries. It was Manny Bates. It was always somebody else's fault. He never took ownership of, hey, we just didn't play good enough. I didn't get them ready. I didn't do this. It was always somebody else's fault. Even at the end, even his letter on the way out was, yeah, they're, underfunded. I'm proud of our achievements. There's nothing about, hey, I wish I could have done better. Right. It's, it's very egocentric, narcissistic stuff. And yeah, it disappoints me the way our athletic department has handled this over the years. Right. To me, if you're going to take a chance on a guy like Keats, who had 3 years at Wilmington before that, and otherwise he was in high school or assistant coach, you got to fail faster. You don't give a guy 8 years to figure out if he can do it or not. Right. At this level, especially now when you can buy players and do all the things you need to do, there's just no excuse for it. And yeah, we just saw it the whole time. And I think our athletic department is maybe taken for granted the history of NC State. I think that has been disappointing to me, right? And I think it's a lot of people who are maybe not have been around for that history. But Boo Corrigan's been in the AC forever. He should know.
Yeah.
He should know that, right? He should know that that is our heritage. But we've slowly whittled away at what made NC State a good basketball program over the years, since moving out of Reynolds and going to Lenovo and just toiling with coaches for way too long when they're clearly not getting it done. I mean, there's a lot of things that we've done over the years that have just basically hamstrung ourselves. And this was no different. I just don't think we've handled things well for our major revenue sports.
This to me puts a little bit of a blemish on Boo Corrigan, taking as long as it has, to be frank about it. Now, a question that came up in my mind, and I wanted to see what your reaction to this was. The recent move by FSU and Clemson lawsuit, and the final decision and the agreements and the changes of things, basically saying, hey, look, you want to make more money, you have to show us something. Is that forcing people's hands? And do you think that came into play here with Boo making that decision that, hey, if we're going to collect the money, we got to show a product, and we have to start bringing in eyes again to our athletic programs, especially football and basketball. And I got to make a move.
I hadn't thought about it like that, but it's very possible that that played a part in it, right? I mean, it was all the eyeballs weren't there. Like, I've had huge state fans that went out to Arizona and they followed state last year and have gone to every state game tell me, "Oh, I didn't know we were playing today." And I'm like,
Oh,
that is a bad mental space to be in as a program. So maybe it was part of it. Maybe that pushed it over the edge and like, hey, listen, this thing's we got to right the ship. We've got to be interesting again. I have a hard time giving Boo that much credit, just the way he's handled our athletics over the years, right? Maybe, but he's not very communicative with the fans or people or, the constituents out here. It's hard to know what he's actually thinking or what his actual long-term plan is.
Hmm.
And I think it's the biggest knock on him. And this is an opportunity for him to save a lot of face in state fans' eyes, right? He goes out and he lands Will Wade, which is what most people want. Then, yeah, I think people will be like, okay, this is your first major hire at NC State, and we feel pretty good about it. You got the hot guy on the market, right? Like that would be a good thing, and that would do a lot to help Boo's legacy. But outside of that, I don't know. I mean, it could have played an influence over it, but I think football is just one that drives those numbers anyway, and basketball is kind of, I don't know, ancillary to that, like, supplemental, if anything. I don't know. I think it was more the state of the program in general.
Hmm. Well,
Evan, I just want to, for a moment, just talk about this year's team. And I know, it's not very, very rosy to talk about, but you mentioned a little bit ago just about buying players, and the players they brought in were decent. Like Marcus Hill had a pretty solid season. He led the team in scoring, and then Dontrez Styles was like the best 3-point shooter. And then there was a Brandon Huntley Hatfield who was like almost a borderline double-double machine at Louisville. It came over and it just, for whatever the reason, didn't work out. I mean, just kind of watching State, it just didn't feel like the pieces really fit with this team. What were your thoughts on that?
That's the Kevin Keatts MO. It's been like that for 8 years. He's just bringing basketball players rather than bringing guys that fit my system. And you watch what Pat Kelsey's doing at Louisville, right? He brought in a whole bunch of guys that would do what he wants them to do, right? Keats doesn't do that. He's like, oh, I'll bring in this guy can score, this guy can score. I'm going to bring him in and let him do a thing. And then you're surprised when it doesn't work out. I really thought, and I said this earlier in the year, I actually didn't mind the roster that much, but his two big mistakes were, one, he didn't get the young guys any playing time early, right? He was deep into February and he's like, playing, 9, 10 guys. That's just unacceptable in the ACC. You don't do that. You got to find your rotation earlier than that. And two, he didn't get anything out of them. I said before, if we had I'll say a real coach, but we had a better coach with the X's and O's, they would have gotten more out of this roster. This roster wasn't second to the last in the ACC bad. Like, they're not good, but they're not that bad. At the same point, you bring in two guys off of the worst team in the ACC scene in the last like 5, 6 years and expect them to be superstars. Well, no. At Louisville, they were getting 36 minutes a game and they were getting, a high number of shots. And then Mike James didn't even play all year. Like, it's just weird. Did you not evaluate, give him a physical, evaluate his knee? How did that happen? There's a lot of question marks that I raise with this team. I don't think they were as bad as they were, but he doesn't get anything out of them. And that's been his problem for the whole time. I mean, I like Jaden Taylor. I think he would have been really good if you could get him to focus on playing defense and not trying to be the man, right? Not trying to be an offensive superstar. It's not what you're good at, Jaden, right? Play defense. But Keats couldn't get that out of him, and he constantly gave him 35 minutes a game. And Michael Connell, like, he had him doing things he was not good at. And to me, that's a sign of poor coaching.
Poor talent, poor evaluation in
Poor,
general.
whole thing. Poor roster construction, poor talent evaluation, and then you're not coaching them up to get the max out of them. So it was a combination of
better
garbage.
get your notepad out and start making marks here, because we're going to start making note of each one of these things where there's a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You need a big notebook.
Yeah, no kidding. As far, and I don't want to get into the coaching names just yet, but let's just say, for example, Will Wade is at the top of the list, and from everything I've read, he is definitely in consideration. And I mean, let's be real. NC State's going to have to step up their game in the NIL if they want to field a competitive basketball team, especially with the amount of turnover there's going to be on this roster going into next season. Do you trust this administration to do that?
That's a very, very good question, because they didn't do it last year after making a run to the Final Four. There was really no hard push to get people on board. Um, I think that was a huge red flag to me and just how everything's run, right? I mean, you would use that opportunity, and they didn't do it after the baseball team made the World Series in 21, right? They just another missed opportunity. You could have gotten a lot of money in it. Part of the problem, though, is there's people like me that like I'm not going to give because I don't trust how they're going to use it, right? I don't trust how Kevin Keatts is going to build a roster if I give him $5. Like it's just, and I think most people felt that way. And you saw what happened. He got fired, and our NIL collective picked up 1,500 new members. Like he like in 3 hours, raised $50,000 in 3 hours. Like, yeah, I think state fans are dying to have a winner. And I know like the argument is, hey, they won the AC champion last year. They made it to the Final Four. And I get it, but everybody, we're not stupid. We realize how random that was, right? We realized the luck and all of that and good matchups and they played a different kind of basketball. State fans aren't dumb, and so they didn't donate. I don't hold any fault in any of them. But also the administration, and this is true for any collective. I'm a marketing guy, so this starts to hit home, is they need to give you a reason to donate, right? They need to give you a reason to part with their money because I'm not just going to go looking for ways to give my money away. Nobody does that, right? You have to give them a reason. And they didn't do it, and they didn't do it at the Final Four run. So, yes, that does make me wonder, are they capable of doing it? I think our fans will step up when the time is right and when, um, you know, they believe in something. That's just always how it's been. Right, we believed in the football program this last year, and we brought 50,000 to Charlotte for that game against Tennessee. Right, there was so much excitement. The state fans will show up. They're just dying for somebody to be a winner. Like they're just dying for it. So, no, I don't trust our athletic administration to do that. But yes, I trust our fan base to show up when they need to.
So, it's so funny how you lay out this amazing potential for success. It's sitting there literally on a plate being handed to somebody, but somebody in that administration is failing. Let me, because my background is marketing too. So I'm going to back up for just a second and I look at that and I go, holy crap, you're right. The baseball team, the women's basketball team. I mean, we can just go down this long list of things and how, as you point out, so many fans traveled. I mean, that game against Tennessee, that's huge turnout, man. Yeah. I mean, it says everything that you need to know. And then having this response, as you just noted a moment ago, following his firing, of people who are stepping up and going, hey, we want to participate and we want to make a difference. We're willing to step up and put money in the coffers. But as you said, I don't know that I trust people to do the right thing. Now, I could point fingers at a couple of people on that. And because I can also look at a couple of other schools in the ACC or any other conference for that matter and see the same thing. But how does that change? How are you going to change that?
Well, NC State is looking for a new chancellor. Supposedly that hire has been made. I'm hoping they have an athletics focused chancellor. And I mean that in a way, not that I understand the role of a university, but I mean that in a way that they should be, it should be a lever that you can pull to drive success in your university, right? Clemson made the national championship game and like about 10 years ago, whatever it was. The next year, the applications to enroll at Clemson was up 200%, right? Through the roof. Same thing, Alabama's seen the same thing, right? It is a channel to make your university grow, to make your university better. And we have not thought about it like that, right? Randy Woodson he did a lot of good things for the academic side, but he, by all accounts, was doing the bare minimum for athletics. And you just can't have that right now, right? They have to work together. So I'm hoping our new chancellor does that, but it's got to come top down, right? I say this all the time, like you have to have a demand for excellence, right? At every level. If Boo demands it from all of his people and they demand it from all their people, that trickles down, right? And that comes from attention to detail and setting those, hey, this is not acceptable. Missing AC tournament, not acceptable. Right? All Boo had to come out and say, this is not acceptable. Right. And then it'd be like, okay, yeah, like I like that. And then you start setting the bar. And then, but we haven't done that. So it's how do you do that? It's got to come from the top. Hopefully, our new chancellor kind of puts that pressure on folks. But from the NIL side, when this is about 2 or 3 years ago, when Savage Wolves, our other collective, first started for us football only, and we had a guy named Tom Lavolsi, Golfer Tom, Wolfpack Tom on Twitter, single-handedly being the mouthpiece for it. Right, he's out there, rallying the troops, getting people excited. And Savage Wolves grew and got people interested, and it got all the money for them to have this team this year to take to Charlotte to get people excited. Right, it was a kind of a snowball effect. Well, things changed. People wanted control over the collective, pushed him out, and now hired some corporate company to run One Pack, which is the name of the collective. We're not alone. A lot of schools are using this particular company, but you lose that bit of grassroots mentality, right? You lose that bit of attention to detail when they're doing it for 20 other schools. And that is part of the reason. Like, you wash your hands of it, and then you can like, well, this is not working the way I thought it was. Oh well, right. Just again, there's nobody pushing that envelope any farther. I feel like it's very neglected, and it's disappointing to me. Now, thankfully, the revenue sharing agreement came through, and that's kind of forcing universities' hands, so they're not so much reliant on begging the fans for money in that regards. NIL is still important; it's still going to be used as a recruiting tool, whatever. But the playing field gets leveled a little bit now when you have, that revenue sharing. But I think people, like I said, state fans, we have some rich alumni. We have plenty of people with money. And I think they will step up when they have something to rally around.
Yeah.
And that better be a hot name, right? I think it's an opportunity for them to say, hey, we want to take this serious. We're going to get the hot name.
Good. It's good to hear that. Will?
You and I yesterday, or on Sunday, were having a conversation about some of the current openings around the ACM and how, like, between like Virginia, we're talking about Shaka Smart is what it was, and we're talking about how there was a potential of him being potentially a candidate at NC State, and then also but look, just kind of looking over like some of the, I mean, we talked about Will Wade and some of the other, and I just want to get this kind of start there. Will Wade seems to be the hot name at NC State, and here's where I'm wondering. No, do you feel like there is kind of a sense of urgency to really get this done, knowing A, Indiana's out there, B, and their season's going, and B, there's Texas may be looking for a head coach, and darn well they're going to throw tons of money at him.
Um, Going back to our conversation, the reason I said Shaka's not leaving Marquette because Marquette is loaded with cash.
Mhm.
Like, they have a lot of private money. Uh, he's got everything he needs. It's a basketball only school. Like, he would be silly to take anywhere else unless he's got some kind of ties to him. I just don't think Shaka goes anywhere. Definitely not NC State, even though he did flirt with us a while back. Um, it's interesting though. Like, Texas, I don't think touches Will Wade. I think after the whole Chris Beard thing, they are very averse to any kind of risk there, and they can put the money up to get somebody who doesn't have that level of risk, right? Or that level of, um, I don't know, taint that comes with him, right? Texas, I don't think they're going to do that. I think there's other guys that they would go after. Brad Underwood being one, and some other guys that I've seen their name float around. Indiana kind of same way. I don't think Indiana would stoop to Will Wade. I think they are honestly Brad Brown. What concerns me about Indiana is if they do get Brad Brownell, who's an Indiana guy from Clemson, and then Clemson goes after Will Wade because Will Wade's a Clemson guy, right? That domino effect does concern me. I don't think Brownell is hot enough or good enough to get Indiana, right? Though they've made a lot of bad hires over the year with Woodson and Miller and whoever else they got, like, I don't think Indiana is going to look at the last 2 years of Brownell's record and say, yeah, 16 years of meh and then 2 years of good is good enough, right? Like, I don't think that's, I think that's below Indiana. I think they're going to get um, somebody who's probably higher up. Dusty May's an Indiana guy down at FAU, or even a guy on my list, Ben McCullum over at Drake. Like, I think those kind of guys would be more likely for Indiana than Will Wade, that potentially has some negative connotations associated with his name.
Yeah, and you mentioned Shaka, and I think they're the Marquette's basically the only game in town. They don't have a football program
Correct.
to fight with money for money. So whatever he wants, he can get. And Marquette is in a situation where, hey, you know what? Yeah, we're expecting you to do good, but if you only make it to the second round of the NCAA tournament, we're not going to fire you.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so just I wanted to throw out a couple other names out at you. Ryan Odom is another one who is expected to get some interest, but obviously with the Virginia job open as well, I think he's got some interest there. What do you think of Ryan Odom?
I think he would do fine, but I think he would be uninspired or uninspiring for our fan base. He's got the history. The counterpoint to that is he's won at Utah State and VCU, arguably the two most well-resourced programs in their respective conferences. So NC State is not that. So is that his advantage, or is he a good coach? I think he's okay. I think he's done well at jobs that he's been at. UMBC, right? He's got 321 seasons there. They never had that before. Obviously, the upset went over Virginia. He's fine. He's a good coach. I think he would do well. Anybody's better than Kevin Keatts, but I don't think that revs up the fan base. If you're looking to win the press conference, that's not it. Will he win games? Yeah, he'll win games. Uh, he'll put you in the top six of the ACC with pretty consistently. I think. Um, Not my first choice, but he's on my list.
I've seen um was it which Miller was or one of the was it there's somebody who was a former NC State assistant, isn't and unfortunately I closed my notes out by accident, so I don't remember. Was it one of the Millers or was it
So both of the Millers
yeah,
actually. So Archie Miller played at NC State. His brother Sean was a coach under Herb Sendek.
Sean is the one I
Um,
was thinking of. Yep.
Flirted with us a while ago before he took the Xavier job the first time. Um, there's some bad blood. There was some bad blood between the Miller family and the university. I just don't think we would go down that road. Although I've seen that name a few times recently, I don't think so. I don't think that would work out. And I think Xavier's a fine gig. He went back there for a reason. Um, yeah, I don't think Sean is destined for Raleigh.
Or are there any other names you would want to throw out there as well that would pique your interest?
Yeah, I mean, my top three are Wade, Ben McCollum, and Ryan Odom. I think you can get any three of those. Odom with the rumors that Villanova would be interested and whatnot, it's fine. But for the most part, you can get one of those three, I would think. Like if you fall out of that list, then there's guys like Justin Gainey, who's a state alum. He's head assistant at Tennessee. He's a guy that would be interesting. I don't know if he would, again, spark the fan base excitement because of his lack of head coaching experience, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Alan Huss at High Point. He is, by all accounts, a rising star. I mean, they just won their conference tournament in wild fashion last night. Offensive focused guy, basketball junkie. Like he's a name that would interest me. Nico Medved, Colorado State. He beat NC State in the NIT a few years ago. He's got Colorado State again in the top two of that conference. Um, he's a heck of a coach. He's a young guy, exciting, kind of very vibrant personality. I think the fan base would really get behind. They wouldn't know him at first. They'd be like, "Who's that guy?" But then when he starts talking, they'd be totally in. Patino Jr., he's not a name that I've seen associated with our job. I know he's talked to Virginia, um, but obviously having a lot of success on his rehab tour after being fired at Minnesota. Bob Ritchie at Furman doesn't have the highs, but guy's just been winning pretty highly for a long time at Furman. I mean, he's been there for 8, 9 years, and just constantly wins and constantly competing for the top of that conference. Young guy, he's one of those names. The one that is also high on my list is Chris Mack. He's now at College of Charleston, outed from Louisville, kind of in some weird circumstances with the whole Dino Gaudio FBI thing mid-season. But he's a guy that I would be really interested in, and I think we've talked to him. He'd be a winner. He'd be in a real gritty SOB, and I think State fans would love that. They would get behind it. I think for State fans, the personality is important because they will. It's kind of the disconnect between Debbie Yow and Boo Corrigan, right? Debbie Yow was very much I'm on your side, I got your back, and Boo Corrigan's kind of quiet and operates differently, right? State fans, this is my analogy, is that we're a very needy bunch, and that we need somebody to have our back. We need somebody to say, hey, we love you. I'm here for you. We're going to fight for you, right? Chris Mack would do that, and he would tell you he's going to do that. It's the same reason I like Pat Kelsey, because he's the same way. So Chris Mack will be up there. Like, I don't think you have to go farther than Wade, McCollum, Odom, or Chris Mack. I think you get one of those four without a doubt. I could go on. I have a whole list, but that's probably plenty.
And let me just I was just going to say, and this is like the perfect year for to get a big name coach. Just kind of looking at the landscape of college basketball. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Texas could be open, but the SEC is, probably the best, and there shouldn't be much turnover outside of there. I mean, the Big Ten should, for the most part, stay intact. So this is the opportunity for NC State to really make a name for itself and get back, as a consistent NCAA tournament team.
Yeah, very true. I mean, it's the one year that I can remember that if you look around the landscape, and I know there's not many jobs open right this minute, but if you look around, like, there's not a lot of better jobs than us. And I don't get to say that very often. Right? I mean, I know where we are in the pecking order of things, and I feel pretty good that we would have the best opportunity to get the guy we want. Now, who is that guy is going to be kind of up in the air, but I feel pretty good about our spot right now. It's ACC's got a long history, but it stinks right now, and it's winnable, right? So, like you said, why would you go to the SEC when you can go to Raleigh and win in a conference and you'd be loved for it, right? I mean, like, there's so much opportunity with State and the ACC right now.
It's a hell of a nicer place to live too. So,
right. Yeah.
just saying, even though I live up the road from you and I like where I am. So, oh man, I was starting to get a little depressed there, but now it's like you guys have sort of given me some hope that things are going in the right direction. It sounds positive. So at that point, that's when I twist things just a little bit, because at the very beginning we talked about spring football. So why not? Let's touch briefly on that. What are we looking at? What's the pack look like this year?
Be a very interesting question. All right. Now we don't have a spring football game because that's the cool thing to do, is cancel them for.
Seems like everybody's doing
dumb. If you're an NC State, that's a very dumb move. I've said this before. It should be the opportunity to market yourself, right? You are not in Alabama. You are not one of these big schools. You need the constant attention. You need to put that out there. You do what Ole Miss did and have a skills competition. You don't have to, put your playbook out there, which is what Dave said. Like, I don't want to, reveal anything. They don't do anything. They don't reveal anything anyway, because they run vanilla offense and defense in these spring games, and it's just for the fans. So do something for the fans, right? Do them to engage it. You have one of the highest or fastest growing counties in the country. You should be engaging more people around them. I have a whole big game plan written up on our website about it, and I put it out there for years, how they need to go in on it, because make it a family-oriented event, get kids interested in it, right? And get them to be your next generation of fans, and all these people moving here, like, give them something to do. There's a lot around it. And so canceling the spring game, disappointing to me. So that's my side tangent. Sorry. But
It's okay. It's the marketing guy talking too, you know?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. State should have the weapons on offense, right? The offensive line will be a bit of a question mark. Can they put one together that is competent after losing some longtime starters? I think it might be addition by subtraction there. But there's certainly talent. I think you have one of the best backs in the league in Hollywood Smothers. Really came on at the end of the last year, was fantastic. You have plenty of talent at the wide receiver position, and then CJ Bailey should progress and get better. I think he was obviously a freshman last year, but he really showed a lot of positive things. So I think the offense has the potential to be good. Now, the question is going to be, are they aggressive enough on offense to balance out the inability to stop anybody on defense? Because they were not last year, and that was what was so frustrating about it. Right? You knew your defense was going to take a step back. You lost Peyton Wilson. You lost a whole bunch of guys that were important to your roster, and you still played ball control nonsense. And that's where State fans get so frustrated with Dave Doran. And they had an opportunity to bring in a new offensive coordinator in, Robert. They fired Robert and I, and had an opportunity to bring a new guy, and they promote Kurt Roper, and you're like, really? Like that's your choice? And I don't know if it'll work out. I don't know. Roper hadn't called plays in a long time. I don't know what his philosophy is. If he's going to play fast, he's going to do anything like that. But there are so many offensive coordinators out there that you could have gotten that would have injected some hope into the fan base, and then you went with that. And the same thing on the defensive side of the ball. You would go get a guy who's was an analyst, DJ Elliott. I mean, he might be okay, he might be fine, but there's a lot of young guys out there that you could have brought in and bolstered not only your defense but also some hope in the fans' eyes. So right now it's a big question mark: is what the hell they're going to do. Talent on the offensive side is there, without a doubt. How do they handle that defensively? Because they lost a whole bunch of guys that played a lot of football. And then what is their general philosophy? It'll be interesting to watch. They should be trying to score 40 a game. That's basically what you're going to do, because you're not going to be able to play ball control. You're not going to be able to stop people. And we saw that last year. So if they can keep their foot on the gas and leverage the talent they have, because man, we haven't had this many good skill position players in a long time. And to be able to leverage that would be a surprise for me, but it's really how they should approach it.
So one of the things that you said earlier, because we started out with basketball and talking about coaching there and what the bar is. Let me throw the bar out here now on football. What's the bar for Dave?
What should it be and what it is are two different things. I think so many people are very complacent and risk averse, right? It's again come back to risk averse with our fan base has been like that for a while. Well, who else are you going to get, right? If you say you're going to fire somebody, who else are you going to get is going to be the response almost every time. And I'm like, well, there's a ton of guys, and I can rattle off a whole list of them, right? Yeah, I don't know what the bar is for Dave. I know for the fan base, it's you better win 8 games and be competitive. Don't lose to teams you shouldn't have. Don't lose to Wake. Don't lose to Duke. Don't lose to obviously Carolina, which they do a pretty good job of beating. But don't lose to ECU to start the year. ECU to end the year last year was a real kick in the balls. Like that's nobody wants to play that game, and then you go out there and lose it because you look like you don't want to play that game. And that to me was like, there's a picture. I don't know if y'all saw it, but there's a picture from the bowl game when we played ECU in the Military Bowl, and it was ECU's team photo and State's team photo, and somebody put them side to side. And ECU's they're all wearing the same outfit. They're all, smiling, looking the right way. And the State one looks like it was like a bunch of guys, I need to pick a picture, and like took a picture, right? It was so disorganized. Clearly one was there on a business trip and one was there on a sightseeing tour. And that's how the game played out. And what's the mentality going to be for this year is kind of what I want to see. Like, are they, again, this goes back to our athletic department, right? It comes top down. Dave should not allow that. He should be not trying to be everybody's best friend and put him, get him in line. Like you look at Saban, Saban wouldn't allow that. That's the reason why he was so successful. He was attention to detail, and it's just not something we've had. So I really don't know what the bar is. I think so many State fans are risk averse, but I think State fans are starting to, their patience is starting to wear thin with the inability to get over the hump. And I don't know. Boo didn't want to fire Keatts this year. Like I know he didn't, and I don't know if he wants to fire Dave if he has a bad year. But you kind of put yourself in that position. You keep him around a long time. The hope is that Dave just is like, I'm tired of this. Tony Bennett sits and walks away, right? I mean, that's kind of the hope here. Thank you for your service. You've left the program in a better spot, but it's time to move on, so you don't have to fire him. I don't know what's going to happen. It's my bar is to be competitive, stop losing to dumb teams you shouldn't be losing to. But our schedule is not favorable, so it's going to be an uphill battle for them. And they need to score points if they're going to do this because they're not going to do it defense.
Yeah, business plans are never built on hope.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, exactly.
So, one of the things that I observe, I think I've seen this more over the last couple of years than I ever have, is that I just feel sometimes you talk about the fans being there to promote and to be excited and supportive, but it's almost like they've been beaten down for so long that it's like, we're not deserving of this. Get a new, who would come here? That kind of attitude. And I get it. I mean, if you've been put in that position for years and years and years, I get why you would feel that way. But I'm going to tell you right now, NC State deserves to have good coaches across the board and have winning programs, period, because it's an awesome school. It's an awesome school. All my interactions with NC State for 40 years plus have been nothing but positive. And, that goes for fans and everybody else. Just so NC State is should have these good things. Believe it.
Right. Yeah. I think there is a very much a Chicken Little mentality with State fans. That just comes from 40 years of being an afterthought. Right. And having an administration that does not demand excellence. And that was so refreshing about Debbie Allen. I know she had her own faults, but at least she came out there and said, hey, we are going to be better. We are going to, compete for X, Y, and Z. And she did it for the most part. Like her goal was different than mine. She was very much Directors Cup focused when, I think that was, you focus more on the revenue sports and it lifts rising tide lifts all boats. But I think the mentality of fan base is, very beaten down and, we can't have nice things, but I don't subscribe to that theory. Like I'm just saying, just fail faster, do better, right? You have to have an administration cares. Don't sign long-term contracts in this age of college athletics, short-term, very incentive heavy deals, right? You want a big paycheck? Here's your payday. Get to this goal, right? Hit this bar. Right. Kevin Keatts didn't have that, right? He's just like cruising, right? I'm going to get my $4 million a year, do whatever I need to do and be happy about it. I think you need to incentivize people the same way you need to incentivize the kids, right? The kids are getting paid now. Are they less entitled to play or less interested in playing? I kind of feel like that. If you watch our football team a few years ago when we were giving everybody 25 grand and we couldn't get rid of the dead weight, right? That was very much hey, I'm getting paid. I'm just going to hang around. I just think you need to demand excellence. I think a lot of State fans are scared of that just because who else are we going to hire? Who are we going to get? Right? They're just the very beaten down mentality over the years. And I talk about it on our podcast all the time. Like I don't believe in that. Like if you're going to do it, just try. Right? Try something different. Don't keep a guy for 10 years just because you're scared of who you might get or who you might not get. Whatever. You got to try.
Thank you for preaching that because they need to hear that. They really do.
Yeah. And to go to your point, State does really well in almost every sport. And I don't mean this hyperbole. I'm not like tennis, men's and women's tennis. They're both top 25 programs. Soccer, both top 25 program. Baseball has been in the last 2 of the 4 College World Series.
Wrestling.
Wrestling is perennial. Women's basketball, Westmore has got that thing rolling, right? He's been in 4 of the last 6 AC championships. He's won 3 of the AC titles. Been to the Final Four last year. Like every one of our programs, our volleyball team's okay. Softball got better, got a new hire, got better. Soccer, like they've all gotten better, except for the ones that matter. And that just drives me crazy. Why don't you demand the same from them? Hopefully they start doing that. And hopefully this is the opportunity for Boo to kind of change his perception and to put his stamp on it and say, all right, here we go. We got the best guy out there, the one everybody wanted. And this is your guy. So, now's the time. I think there's a ripe opportunity for it because, I think NC State's got a lot of things going for it. They just can't get over the hump. They can't get out of their own way.
Well,
I'm good. I think Evan really covered a lot.
I don't know how good you are, but that,
Yeah. No, I mean, I like I said, I didn't really have anything else. I think the conversation here with Evan has been great, and I think it really kind of spells what I'm seeing from my 1,000-mile view. It just feels like it feels like the current administration has been just accepting the mediocrity of the both the football and basketball programs for
Correct.
some time now. And basketball is definitely a top half ACC job. Well, football is too. They're definitely top half ACC jobs. There's talent in those states. There's obviously a very passionate fan base, and it's not just people like Evan. I've encountered him over my time, engaging on social media with them. It's just there needs to be more. I 100% agree.
Yeah, I hope that is what we push for, right? And that was kind of always again, coming back to Debbie Yao, she said, hey, we're going to compete for championships and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And I love that mentality. Like just try is all I'm asking. And I think you'll find a lot of State fans will, rally behind anybody who gives them hope. And it's crazy for us because we've had so much hope and disappointment, but it's there. We're just dying for a winner. And the first one that gives it to us is going to be a god in Raleigh. Like it's crazy.
I don't doubt that for 1 minute either, because I get it.
I mean, Wes Moore could kick somebody's puppy and nobody would complain right now. And it's women's basketball. Can you imagine that same sort of success on either a football or men's basketball level? It would be through the roof.
Unbelievable. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to that happening, and soon. I think that I think that's something to aspire to, and hopefully everybody starts putting pressure on the administration, and just really starts being loud, vocal about it, and saying, "Hey, this is what we expect out of you," and demand it.
Yeah.
I saw sometimes the only way to get what you're looking for, and I hope people will start to do that. I know I can be a real pain in the area.
They don't like me around here because I do it all the time. I'm not afraid to ruffle some feathers. I'm too old for their nonsense. Like
Oh no, I've seen it.
Yeah. Right.
It's all good. Hey, Evan from Red and White Podcast has been our guest to talk about NC State, the Pac, sports across just across from top to bottom. We're talking about basketball. We're talking about football and everything else that's going on there in Raleigh, and why things are going to be going in the right direction. And you can just feel the uplifting aspect of this conversation is going to take it. And as you said, rising tide lifts all boats. And I hope that is the case. Thank you, sir, for joining us and talking everything.
Yeah, anytime.
Thanks, Evan.
ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage with Will and Jim. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on our podcast, streaming radio, and YouTube. Connect with us on Blue Sky, Reddit, Instagram, Threads, Mastodon, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn.